Associate Director in the Office of Career Services. I'd like to welcome all of you here today for our Fall Imagine Speaker Series, Jennie Thompson. We have created this speaker series to give alumni an opportunity to highlight their own career journeys for us. Because we very often heard from alumni that as they left Princeton and graduated and went out into their first job, they never imagined how their career might unfold. So these Imagine Speaker Series give us an opportunity to bring back alumni from very different career fields and jobs to give us an idea of the decisions that they made, the risks that they took, the opportunities that they seized as their careers began to develop and unfold. So it's with great pleasure today that I'm going to introduce to you Jennie Thompson. She graduated in 1990 with a concentration in history. At that point, she joined ABC Sports and began her career reporting on events such as the Super Bowl, the college football games around the country, U.S. figure skating champion and gymnastics championships, and wide world of sports. She traveled internationally, including Russia, as well as Cuba. In 1996, she began working as a production associate, working on NBC Olympics coverage. And she covered first the 1996 Atlanta Games. The rest of the story is hers to tell today. So please join me in welcoming Jennie Thompson to tell you about her own story.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so exciting to be here. Everybody was asking me if I was nervous, and I kept saying the same thing, that I wasn't nervous. I was really excited to be able to be here and speak to you, because when I was a student here, the career services was a little, they didn't really do things like this. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for everything that Kathleen was saying, to be able to come here and sort of share how you go down a career path that's a little bit different. When I was here, the career service office is really focused on management consulting and investment banking, and there were a couple people who, I don't know if it's still like that, well, but they're doing this, so that's good. But it's management consulting in Bain and McKinsey and investment banking, and then there was a little bit of the buyer training program for like Macy's and Bloomingdale's that had these very coveted jobs for, I think, $14,000 a year. I don't know how you were supposed to live in New York City for $14,000 a year, even back then. But so I'm really happy to be able to provide a little glimpse of what it's like to work at NBC News, specifically at the Today Show. And the pictures that you're seeing behind me, they're sort of my scrapbook. They were all from my camera, so the ones I'm in I obviously didn't take, but these were sort of some of my experiences from the last few Olympics. I didn't have a digital camera, I don't think, at the first few, but these were all my personal photos. So how many of you watched the Today Show? Oh, okay, good, you're all, that's good, that's very good. Well, we're on 4 hours a day, 7 to 10 almost all around the country, and then the fourth hour from 10 to 11, that is hosted by Kathy Lee and Hoda. That's sort of seen at different times. Sometimes it's later in the morning, but it is part of the Today Show. And we've been the #1 rated morning show for about 15 years. So before we start talking about my job in particular, I wanted to show you one clip that was from our first day of the most recent Olympics, which was in Vancouver, Canada. And this was the open of the show on that day. Let's pause this.
They've trained years for a few precious moments. A chance to make history. To dazzle the world with athletic perfection and daring. A chance to burst onto the world stage.
You never know what's going to happen.
Or to redeem a dream delayed.
I can guarantee you that I'm doing everything I can.
From all over the world, the athletes have come to Vancouver. And we've got a front row seat to all the excitement, all the drama, all the fun, as the Olympic Winter Games get underway today, Friday, February 12th, 2010.
From NBC News, this is a special edition of Today at the Olympic Games with Matt Lauer and Meredith Vieira, live from Vancouver, Canada.
in the morning in Vancouver when we were live, so it was dark.
On a Friday morning, 12th day of February. You're looking down at the city of Vancouver. Now up to our location here on Grouse Mountain, a beautiful spot. We're happy you've joined us. I'm Matt Lauer.
We had an ice rink.
Al Ruger, you ready?
And our set was next to a fire pit. It was always very smoky afterwards.
You got out yesterday?
You got out, now we're here and ready to go. This is exciting.
It's beautiful up here, isn't it?
It really is. It really is.
You know what's really nice when the wind shifts and the smoke from the fire comes over your face? But
I've got a pork shoulder in my pocket.
that's a whole other story.
Okay, so we can stop this one.
Today now, through the across the duration of the Olympics, and it's 4 a.m. here.
Let me just start this again. Okay, so my job is sort of twofold. When it is not, I would say the 6 months leading up to the Olympics, I'm a producer on the show. So I do everything. I do healthcare, I do cooking, I do the news of the day. I do authors, celebrities, whatever is either assigned to me or an idea that I come up with myself. That's what I work on. And so if it is a live spot, I find the guest who's going to speak on whatever the topic is. If it's a tape spot, I go out and coordinate shooting the interviews, figure out what other elements we need to shoot. So that's what I do when it's not Olympic time. When it's Olympic time, I'm one of the supervising producers for the Olympics, so I help determine what stories we're going to do, what athletes we're going to focus on, and it's not, depending on where we're going to be, it's more than just the athletes we're going to focus on, it's the cultural stories we're going to do, the food stories we're going to do, and we usually start this about 6 months out. So we air the stories both before the games. We usually call them Countdown to Vancouver or Countdown to Beijing. So we sort of give our audience an introduction to who these athletes are and what they're like. And then at the games themselves, we have a whole plan going in because since we're on 4 hours a day, that's a lot of programming, a lot of time to fill. And our spots are usually very short. They're usually 3 or 4 minutes. So to fill 4 hours, that's a lot of planning. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you one of the spots that I did myself before Vancouver. It was a spot on Lindsey Vonn. She's an alpine skier, and heading into the games, she was very well known in Europe, and she had won the overall World Cup title. But a lot of times people here don't really focus on skiing unless it's an Olympic year. So a lot of people here had never heard of her. So this was the spot that aired before the Olympics started. I think it was the Tuesday before. Now, as it turned out, the next day she got injured and this whole drama unfolded about her. But this was before that happened. So I'm going to show you this. That was sort of our introduction to our viewers of who Lindsey Vonn was.
Were high hopes for medals, but during a downhill training run,
Maybe stop and play it again.
Vancouver is brought to you by Walmart. Save money, live better. Walmart.
And this morning on today's Countdown to Vancouver, Lindsey Vonn. She is perhaps America's best hope for gold here at these games. I recently spent some time with Lindsey and learned that her passion for skiing started when she was just a toddler.
Back here in Vail and seeing all the trails that I skied on when I was growing up. It brings back some really good memories.
The story goes that your parents got you on skis when you were 2. Is that right?
I was racing like my whole family down the mountain, and I was always the one that was competing, beat everyone down the mountain.
No cutting turns, it was straight
Oh yeah,
down.
just straight, just bombing it. And then of course I got the donut and the hot chocolate there, so.
It wasn't long before that thirst for hot chocolate turned into a hunger for more. Lindsey's family left their home in Minnesota so she could train in the mountains of Colorado. Do you remember when the first time was that someone came to you and said, Lindsey, this could be more than just a hobby for you. You've got something more than other kids your age have.
I think it was when I was about 10 or 11. I was constantly skiing with kids a lot older than me. And I was really good. I was always beating the older girls. And there were so many parents and coaches saying, wow, you're so lucky. Things are going to go well for you.
out those people were right. At only 17, Lindsay made the 2002 Olympic team and finished a very respectable 6th in the combined event. Heading into the 2006 Olympics, there were high hopes for medals. But during a downhill training run, the unimaginable happened.
We watched in horror as you had a really tough crash.
Yeah.
What do you remember about it?
It was definitely the most painful experience I've ever gone through. I thought my career was over, bottom line, and it really scared me to death. It was also, I think, a turning point for me personally, where I realized how much I love ski racing, how lucky I am to be in a sport that I love. I've always been a hard worker, but I think it's taken me to a whole new level, and it really made me appreciate every single day that I have.
To everyone's amazement, only 2 days later, Lindsay skied in the downhill and finished 8th. Most consider that an incredible achievement, but not Lindsay.
I was amazingly really disappointed. I thought I could have done better.
4 years later, Lindsay's got another chance in Vancouver. Experts consider her a medal threat in all 5 alpine events.
You can't talk about the Winter Olympics without people saying Lindsay Vonn is at the top of the list of the athletes.
It's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectation out there. But for me, I think this is a good chance to show, America who I am and show them my sport and show them how great ski racing is.
When she's not training, Lindsay's days are filled with photo shoots, filming commercials for her many sponsors, and being an ambassador for Vail, where she's living once again.
Well, what I like about Vail is there's a free bus. Anywhere you want to go. Here we are. So we're downtown. This is Bridge Street, kind of the center of Vail. Great shopping, great food. This is one of the cute stores in Vail, so let's go check it out. Perfect for Vancouver. Definitely to keep me warm. These are pretty funky. Definitely gonna try these ones on.
Hey, Lindsay, is gold one of your favorite colors?
As a matter of fact, it is.
Last summer, the town held a pep rally for Lindsay. Fans of all ages gathered to cheer her on and wish her the best at the Olympics.
You've met a lot of people back in Vail.
You definitely want to make them proud, and that's a good image to have in your mind. It's definitely a huge motivating factor. So I'm definitely going to remember those guys when I'm in Vancouver.
Go, Lindsay! Cheers for Lindsay! Anything like that?
All right.
I understand. Okay.
Okay, so that was about 4 minutes. And what I wanted to explain to you was how much went into putting a spot like that together. All right, the first thing that we have to decide when we're doing something like that is who are we going to do it on? Because there are hundreds of athletes from this country who are going to represent the U.S. At the Olympics. So for Lynch, we have a whole division of NBC that is called the Olympic Division. Now, I work for the Today Show, but there's a whole Olympic division, and within that division, there are researchers. So there are people there who spend probably 15 hours a day. They work really hard in the year leading up to the Olympics, studying the athletes and going out to the events and sort of figuring out who the big stars are going to be. Now, of course, sometimes things happen like injuries or people, might peak the year before the Olympics, but all these people, that's what they do. They go to the events, they meet them, they figure out who's going to be great, if they have good personalities, all that kinds of stuff. So once we had zeroed in on Lindsay, and we thought she was going to do very well, so then we say, okay, we're going to do a tape profile on Lindsay. So then we needed to we always like our main anchors, Matt Lauer, Meredith Beer, and Natalie Morales, to do the big interviews that we're really going to focus on. So then we have to get Matt and Lindsay together. But then there's the challenge of we're a news program, so we want to do the interview as close to as possible to when we're going to air it. But then you have to worry about the athletes' training schedule. And for skiers, they go to Europe for probably the three months, sometimes more than 3 months leading up to the games to ski. And Matt Lauer can't really go off to Europe that easily because he has to be on the Today Show every day. So then, as a producer, you have to figure out getting Matt's schedule with Lindsay. So what we did for that particular story was when Lindsay was coming through New York on her way to Europe, we had her stop by, and we did that interview probably think it was about 7 weeks or 8 weeks before the actual Olympics. So it was, you don't want to do it 4 or 5 months before because the story could be completely different. You want it to be timely, but at the same time you want to get it done. Then you have to decide, okay, where are you going to do it? You don't want to do it somewhere that's going to look dated when it airs. If it's Christmas and it's outside, you don't want to have the tree in the background if it's airing in February. So that one we ended up doing in the bar of a restaurant that happened to be near the Today Show. But you don't want it to just look like a bar. So then as the producer, it's your job to figure out how to make it look appropriate. So what I did for that one was I rented skis, and we put skis in the background. And we had then also your job as a producer is to book the camera crews to come in, and then they were able to light it and sort of set the shots so that you couldn't really tell you were in a bar. It looked like you were in a ski lodge. But that's where we did it. So that was just the interview itself with Matt. And that interview, when he did it, he's very quick. His interview with her was probably 20 minutes. That got cut down to 4 minutes. But sometimes interviews can be 45 minutes. And when you see them on the air, they're 3 or 4 minutes. And these days we've been putting more of the entire interview, particularly with big newsmakers, on our website, todayshow.com. But a lot of it gets trimmed out when you see it in the spot. So then, now another thing was you saw that Lindsay was in Vail. So I got to go to Vail and do all that shooting with Lindsay around town and some of the background shots of her on the gondola. And so I come up with sort of topics that we want to talk about and figure out where to talk about them. So that is one of the best things about the job, is you get to go all these interesting places and meet interesting people. And we did that earlier because she was only going to be in Vail during the summer. So they happened to be having that pep rally that you saw at the end going on in Vail. So that was when I decided to go, and all these people were running around going, "Go Lindsay, go Lindsay." So I went up to them and said, "Oh, could you do that again for the camera?" And then I thought that would be a cute ending to the spot. So that was how that came to be. Then there was a whole bunch of historical clips that you saw in there, and photos that we don't own. So that some of the historical footage was when she crashed at the Olympics before, and there was some of her footage of her skiing when she was very young. That I as the producer had to go out and figure out if it existed, where it existed, and then physically get it, and then get the rights to air it on NBC News. So usually we can negotiate with people, and usually for a credit or for a small fee, they'll let us do the rights and clearances. But that's another thing that's very important in my job, particularly in this day and age when everything goes on the internet and when things are on airlines, that it's not just airing once and then nobody ever sees it again. It's being repurposed, it's being sold, and so you have to be really careful. That's like a whole other area of a producer that it's not necessarily the first thing you think of, but we're always having meetings just like this one to talk about how important that is. And then you might have noticed in that spot when it was playing the music going on in the background. So when we're doing spots with newsmakers, we don't really have music going, but when there's a feature spot like this one that's more sort of fun, we do the music, and that's another job that I do. I pick all that music and figure out how to play it and where to play it. And then when I'm editing the spot with an editor, they put it in and try to make the level right so you can still hear the music and hear her speaking. But that's a whole nother thing. So once I write the script with Matt, then I go through and do like a whole nother pass and figure out where the best music should be. Now for the Olympic spots, this doesn't usually come up, every now and then, but there's a whole nother pass with the legal department that you have to, when you're doing a spot about somebody or something, a lot of times the NBC legal department has to be involved, because you have to be, of course, when you work for NBC News, you have to make sure that you're fair, and if there's anything that is a little touchy, you have to make sure that you're presenting both sides of the story. So for this one in particular, there wasn't really anything that there was any questions about, but I know that last year I worked on a story that was involving a lawsuit with Ringling Brothers and their treatments of the elephants in their circus, that they were being sued by various groups who were concerned about the treatment of the elephants, and that, I think, was seen, both my script and my story before it aired was seen by the lawyers probably 10 times, just to make sure that every point that was made by one side, the other side had a chance to respond to. So that's something that you don't, again, necessarily think about, but when you work for a news organization, you have to make very sure that the story that you're presenting is fair to both sides. So now, after seeing this, you're probably wondering how a history major from here, like myself, ever stumbled upon this. So when I graduated from here, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that I didn't want to be the management consultant, and I didn't want to be the investment banker. I wanted to travel, and I didn't want to sit at a desk all day. So the way that I started was actually my father's sister knew somebody who worked at ABC in entertainment, and I went and I talked to him because I thought, oh, TV, that would be fun. You get to work on events, you get to travel. And he sent me to the sports department. And the sports department, ABC Sports at the time, had a program where you could be a runner, and you would get paid $50 a day to work in an event, and you had to get yourself to the event. So you would have to either drive there or buy your own plane ticket, and then you would get paid $50 a day to make copies, get people food, get people water, basically whatever they needed. Drive people around to restaurants, and you would drive them to the restaurant, and you would sit in the car while they had dinner. And sometimes if they were nice, they might bring you like a roll or something afterwards. But at the time, it seemed like, why would I went to Princeton, why would I be doing this? But it paid off in the end. And then the other funny thing about it was that they would give you a hotel room, but you would have to share the hotel room, I think sometimes with up to, I think one time I shared a room with 8 other people, like a regular hotel room with 8 other people. And I remember there was this one guy who would always claim the bathtub. So he would go and he would say, the bathtub is mine, because then he would have his own room. So he would bring his pillow and his sleeping bag, and he would sleep in the bathroom. And there were just sort of people piled in these rooms. But that I didn't go to graduate school. That was sort of my introduction and my training when I graduated. That was how I got into this. And I met all sorts of different people, and it really, at least when I was doing it, was sort of a way to, an entree in the door. And then pretty soon they would say, oh, okay, well, we've promoted you. We're not going to pay you $50 anymore. We're going to pay you $75 a day. And then pretty soon they would say, ooh, this was a really big deal. I remember this. They would say, okay, now we're giving you a deal position. And that meant that they would fly me there. They would pay me, I think it was $100 a day, and I got my own hotel room, which that was really big. And then somewhere along the line, I started giving them my own rental car, so that was good too. So then after I did that for a little while, then I was, I think it was about maybe a year to 18 months later, I was actually hired by ABC Sports, and I moved to New York. So I actually had a real job, and I worked for ABC Sports, and I went to, I was a graphics coordinator. So that meant that I would go to live sporting events, and all the graphics that you see on the screen, like the score of the football game or how many rushing yards somebody has, I was sort of in charge of coordinating all that. So I did that for, I guess, until about 1995, and then I had always wanted to work on the Olympics. And I went and I interviewed to work on the profile unit for the Atlanta Olympics in 1996, and I was hired to do that. And I worked on the unit that did the profiles for the actual Olympics for the next year and a half. So I would travel around both the country and the world and do profiles on both American athletes and international athletes. So that was a lot of fun. And then when that was done in 1996, I had met at the actual Atlanta Olympics. There was a bombing that happened, and I was working in the primetime control room, and I met some people from the news division when that happened, and I thought, oh, the Today Show, that would be fun. And so then I went and interviewed at the Today Show, and I was hired to work there, and I've been there ever since. So it's been about 15 years. So that's how I got into it, and since you're all here, I'm assuming that you would like to know how you could get into it. So it's a little bit different now. I don't think ABC Sports has that runner program anymore, but the thing these days that both NBC and I would think everybody in TV is really looking is for people who can do what's called DJ, digital journalist, and that means that you shoot and edit things yourself. So they're training people in my office. They have been training people to do this, and I've had a little bit of training on it. But in the past, when I've gone out and done a story, I was the producer. I was in charge of all the logistics. I was in charge of the content. But now, producers, particularly ones that are being hired younger, are expected to shoot things themselves and to edit things themselves. So I've learned how to do this a little bit, but I know that every single person who is hired has to do that. And it's not, I don't think you have to go out and buy some big expensive camera. You can do it just with small cameras that you have, or people do it with phones. I mean, things have really changed. We used to spend a lot of money on making sure every shot looked perfect, and now we put things on the air from YouTube and things that people take with their phones. So it's a little bit different. And if you're interested in being on the air, a reporter, the way that most people I know have done that is that they start at small stations. So they go somewhere very, very small, a small market. I know people have gone to Iowa, people have gone to cities in Iowa, and people in cities in Nebraska, a very small market, and then they work their way up. So every time they get another job, which tends to be every 2 or 3 years, they try to get to a market that's rated a little bit higher. So they might start at market 150 and then go to 135 and then go to 90. And so that's sort of how they do that. But even those people today, even the people who want to be on air, are still responsible for shooting and editing. So reporters used to go out with a camera person, an audio person, and somebody to run the satellite truck. Now they go out by themselves. Sometimes they drive the truck, they have their camera, they put the microphone on themselves, and that's just how they do it. So my advice would be that if you have the opportunity to get an internship, definitely do that, because I still think that this particular industry is really about making connections and getting to know people and be willing to do anything. That's what I did, and I mean, I could tell you what kind of chicken Keith Jackson liked, and those are the people I worked with, and Bob Greasy liked tacos and all these things. It seemed a little strange at the time that was what I was doing, but it makes a big difference. And you learn the skills just by being around it. I mean, at Princeton, unless things have changed, there was no journalism major, so people are always saying to me, well, how did you major in history? And, well, that's how I did it. It was just on-the-job training, and it was something that I loved, so I just figured it out. And another thing that I think is really important right now is a good way to get into the industry is to be willing to work weird hours. Now, when I started at the Today Show, there was no overnight shift. There were people, we sort of had a shift where sometimes we would have to stay till 2 or 3 in the morning, but now there's an entire staff that works overnight who is assigned to that. And a lot of people don't want to do it, but when you're young, it's a really good way to get into any news business is to say, you know what, I don't mind. I'll do it. You probably are used to staying up very late anyway, so to do it for a couple of years, it's really, I mean, I've done it myself. I can still do it now, and I still do it now sometimes, but it's a really good way to get on the fast track. Now, a lot of people always say to me, well, what is the worst part of your job? The worst part of my job is definitely the hours, working on the Today Show, because I was never really a morning person. I'm still not a morning person. But you have to be a morning person when you work at the Today Show. We are on at 7 a.m., and I don't go in every day that early, but a lot of times I do, and you have to be there, and you have to be, you know, had your coffee and dressed and ready to go at 5 a.m. And particularly when I'm working on the Olympics, it's always interesting to see how it affects what we do, because no matter what time zone you're on at 7 a.m. Eastern. So when we were in Sydney in 2000 at the Olympics, and in Beijing in 2008, it was nighttime there. So we had the whole day to get ready for our broadcast. So in Beijing, for example, we would get up in the morning there and go watch Michael Phelps race. So we could actually, our set just happened to be right across from the pool, so I had my credentials, so we'd all go marching in there, and we would watch Michael Phelps race, and that would happen at about, it was a 12-hour time difference, so it was probably 11 a.m. there, 11 p.m. here, so you were all watching it at the end of the primetime show, and it was the morning there. So we would watch him race, he would win, you all would go to sleep, and then we all would have 7 hours to put our whole show together. So that was great. And then at the end of the day, we would go to bed and nothing was happening, and that was fine. Well, it was not like that in Vancouver. This was me testing how much I could stay up all night. Vancouver was the worst hours ever, because 7 a.m. on the East Coast is 4 a.m. in Vancouver. So that means we're on live at 4 a.m. So this was a typical day for me in Vancouver. The competition, the prime time, what happens at night when you're watching, say between 8 and midnight, those were all the prime events that everybody wants to hear about. So it was at night there, and all the events would go on, and then they would wrap up by probably 10 in Vancouver. So my job at the Olympics, before the games, I do all the planning, figure out all the features, but then at the games, my job is to react and to see who actually wins and to get those people, no matter who they are, to come on the show the next morning. Now, normally this is not a problem because everybody wants to come on the Today Show and wants America to see them and their medal, but when you say to them, well, actually you can't go to bed and you have to take this gondola ride with us up this mountain at 2 a.m., it was a little bit dicey. But that was what I did. So starting at about 10 o'clock at night, I would call everybody when somebody won and convince them and their people and their agents and their sponsors that it was a good idea for all of them to stay up all night, that it would be worth it for them. And then we have a whole team of runners and production assistants who would drive all around Vancouver in the middle of the night, gather these people, and then our set was on a ski mountain. So they would bring them to the ski mountain, and then one of the pictures that's going by, you'll see there's a gondola. So then we would take a 15-minute gondola ride up to the top of Grouse Mountain, say around 3 a.m. We would feed them. We had a very nice warm breakfast to keep everybody awake. And if they had been celebrating, we would give them coffee. And then at 4 a.m., we were on live. So then we would do the show from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. So then it's 7 in the morning and the sun is coming up. So then we would go back down and I would try to sleep from about 8 in the morning until about noon. But that was pretty challenging. I'm not generally nocturnal. So that is, and a lot of times people would wake me up because something would happen and they would say, oh, Lindsey Vonn, something just happened and she's up in Whistler and that's 2 hours away and we need you and Matt to go up there right now. And I would say, oh, but I've only slept for an hour. Well, you need to go. So that's what I would do. And in the pictures from Vancouver, the ones of me, you'll see my eyes are half masked. Because after a couple days of this, it was very difficult. All right, so that's the worst part of the job. The best part of a job like mine is that the good so far outweighs the bad. The people that you meet, the experiences that I have had, I've been to the last 8 Olympics. It's just such a great variety in my day-to-day job. I'll do cooking one day, I'll do a new book the next day, a serious news story the next day. And it's very project-based. So I'll work on a project, and like the Lindsey Vonn one I probably worked on for 2 months. It wasn't all that I did, but I was working on it for 2 months. And then I would be working on other things too, some of which I would work on for a day and it would be done. So I really like that pace. Like I like having some long-term projects, some short-term projects, and it really keeps it interesting. And you can make it, if you're interested in something in particular at a show like the Today Show, you can really hone in on that and make your job what you want to be. I mean, when breaking news happens, we all do breaking news, but if you really like books, you can do books all the time. If you really like cooking, you can do cooking all the time. You can really sort of make it your own. And it's very different than other jobs. My husband is an attorney, and he'll spend 3 years working on one case, and that's it. And for me, I wouldn't like that. Like, I really like to do different things and have every day a little bit different. And then another thing is that these stories that you do, or that I do, they take you places that you would never, ever, ever expect to be, or people that you would never expect to meet. So I'm going to show you another video, but to sort of set this up, one of the things is I've always done ice skating. I follow the ice skaters and I like ice skating. And I always sort of thought that what the skaters wear, the costumes, was kind of interesting. Sometimes they're kind of weird, sometimes they're a little out there. But I've always wondered, how did they come up with this costume for their performance? So for this Olympics, I thought, well, let's do a story on that. Like, how does one of these skaters come up with their costumes? So the skater who I knew pretty well was Evan Lysacek. You might have seen in these pictures. He taught my daughter to skate. This was way before he won the Olympic gold medal. He was just this nice man. And when I was trying to get someone to skate on Thanksgiving morning, most skaters would be like, oh no, I want to be with my family. I had this to do, I had that to do. And Evan would say, I'll come. So I always liked Evan. I always thought he was a nice guy. And he was telling me one day leading up to the Olympics that he had all these ideas for costumes and that he had met Vera Wang somewhere along the line. And that Vera had agreed to design a costume for him. And she had never designed for a male skater before. She had designed for Michelle Kwan and Nancy Kerrigan, but never for a male. So he said, okay, you can do my costume. And I said, well, what's involved in this? She's like, oh, we're starting now. And I said, now, 6 months out? And he said, yes. So he sort of told me what they were doing. And so I thought, okay, let's shoot this as a story. So I'm going to show you the story that we ended up airing.
We are back with more on U.S. figure skater Evan Lysacek's spectacular performance in the short program. less than a point behind leader Yevgeny Plushenko. And Lysacek's costume was as stunning as his skating. It was made by famed fashion designer Vera Wang. We're going to talk to her in a moment. But first, a peek at the process that took over 6 months.
Who he is as an artist, what's he trying to express, what the music is saying. You really want to enhance the performance. As a designer, it's a huge, huge challenge.
6 months ago, Vera Wang put on skates and got on the ice to watch Evan Lysacek practice his Olympic programs.
She is so into
Once a
skating,
competitive
Vera.
skater herself, seeing Evan practice in person is part of Vera's creative process. At times, she just couldn't contain her enthusiasm. And she's even willing to try out some of Evan's complex choreography.
The choreography is king, and music is king, and his art is king. Hopefully the costume lives up to the choreography. So that's kind of sort of my issue, to go extremely minimal or to go more theatrical will be a very, very big question in my mind.
Later in the day, Evan meets with Vera and her staff at Vera's New York office.
And I love fringe. I'm kind of a fringe girl. Fringe is liquid, and fringe has sex appeal. Not thinking, you know, fringe belly dancers.
Vera asked Evan to try on a costume he wore in the past. To see how it fit his body, check out how it stretches when he moves, and measure him wearing it.
Twisting is kind of in a different fabric and still good, but it makes you look tougher. Could be a very, very cool thing for a narrow sleeve treatment.
Since Evan's short program music is called Firebird, Vera has the idea of incorporating feathers from Paris into his costume. Evan is into that.
I really like these thin.
I know, the coloring of it, right?
Yeah.
And well, that's old hand done.
Until Vera pulls out some silver feathers.
Look at the front, these are all
Silver, I don't even want to touch it.
Look at, excuse me! You're so right, it's all about the gold, man. I don't want to give away all my secrets, so bye. See you at Vancouver.
And Vera Wang is here in Vancouver to watch Evan compete. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
It is all about the gold feathers. Fashion Week in New York, you had a show yesterday, but you flew out here to see Evan skate last night. 2 things. How do you think he looked? How did he do?
Well, I was determined to get here, no matter what. But I have to say he looked, I think, incredible, and not just because I was in costume, but I think he skated so beautifully, and that's what it's really.
So for something like this, again, we had to pick somebody who we thought was going to do well, because if Evan was in 15th place after the short program, would anybody really care what he was wearing? So that was a little bit of a chance to, wait, let me just get this going again, to wait till he had actually competed, because in skating there's the short program and the long program, so we aired this the day in between those two, so that it was very timely, it was very newsy, and that's what we do, but we had to plan it 6 months in advance. And I went out and shot all those things, and when I got there, when we came up with the idea, it was just, oh, Vera Wang's designing this, people know Vera Wang, they think of her with wedding dresses, well, you know, let's just go see what happens. And then I heard, okay, well, Vera's going to go watch Evan skate, and then when I got there, she got on the ice, and she was so passionate and very into the creative process, and it was amazing to sort of, that was not something that I was expecting. So then, when she decided she was going to come to Vancouver, I thought, well, let's not do it all on tape. Let's have her live. So let's make the tape spot real short and then have her live. Then, of course, I had to convince her that she was going to stay up all night with me and come up on that gondola ride at 3 in the morning. So we aired all that, and then it was the night of the finals, and Evan was in 2nd place, and I've known him for a long time, so I thought, all right, I'm going to go. I have my credentials, so I'm going to go. So I go with my friend to the figure skating finals, and Evan wins. And then we're getting ready for the medal ceremony, and there's Vera sitting about 5 rows in front of me. So I go down and ended up watching the medal ceremony from, I'm probably here, the medal ceremony is probably where the camera is, so close with Vera Wang. So in these pictures somewhere, there's a picture of me and Vera Wang and some of our friends, and that was just an experience that I could never, ever, ever have predicted, and it's one of my favorite memories. So let's see. So I guess the thing that I wanted to leave you with is some advice, sort of for the overall career search and trying to figure out what you're going to do. I know it can be overwhelming. I didn't know what I was going to do when I graduated, but I think the best advice that I could give you is to find something that you love and make that your career. And that's, I truly love my job. When I get up in the morning, even if I'm staying up all night or even if I'm getting up at 4 in the morning, I look forward to going into work. I mean, of course, everybody has bad days, but it's just so interesting. And out of all my friends, everyone always says you love your job the most. And it's because early on, I knew I didn't want to sit behind a desk and I wanted to be traveling. And that's another thing, is if you can find a career, especially when you're young and in your 20s, where you can travel, particularly internationally, that has been so valuable for me. And it doesn't get impossible as you get older, but it gets harder to travel because you might have a family, you have other commitments. So if you can do it when you're young, it's the best time to do it. And if you can find a job that helps you, to me, it was just so valuable. And certainly being here at Princeton, I mean, everybody who's my age, we just had our 20th reunion, looks back and thinks, oh, you know, we loved it, but wouldn't it be great if we could go back? And so also appreciate where you are now, because this is a great place. It's a great place to learn. You've got so many amazing opportunities, so make sure you take advantage of them. And don't just go into something because you don't know what else to do. I don't know what it's like now, but my year, so many people went to law school because they thought, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go to law school. And it's great if you want to be a lawyer, go to law school. But if you think that there might be something else that you're interested in, what I did was I spent those years, I only made $50 a day, but I wasn't in debt at the end of it. And I met people, I made contacts, I just sort of worked my way into this job, and 20 years later, I still love it. So, questions? What do you want to know? Yes?
Were you an athlete at Princeton? Like, were you associated with sports at all, or was that sort of happenstance and you had to sort of like learn on the fly with the...
I always liked the Olympics. I played on the golf team here. It was a club varsity sport at the time, so I was a women's golfer. But I always liked sports, and I liked it sort of from a perspective of the event. And actually, when I did my thesis here, because I was a history major, I hadn't thought about this in a while, but I did my thesis on the history of Ohio State football, because I'm from Ohio, and about how football, right, funny, about how football changed from being a sport, because originally, I mean, football was a sport. It was a sport for exercise. It was a game, and now it's a form of entertainment. And everybody, you know, college football games, that's what everybody does on Saturday. So I went to Ohio State. My dad actually had a friend there, so who helped me get into the archives, and I can't remember if it was the summer before, but I spent several weeks down there going through the archives, and I did a case study of how Ohio State football changed from being a sport for exercise to a form of entertainment for the nation. So, but no, I was not an athlete. I was not a varsity athlete here. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit more about what now would be a typical entry route for someone into Tunisia?
Well, it is, as it is everywhere, it is hard to get entry-level jobs, but they do exist, particularly on that overnight shift that I was talking about, because nobody wants to do it. But when we hire people now, we hire them as production assistants. And what they do is we have because we're on the air, well, any show that's on the air for any period of time has something called a rundown or a format. And they go through and they put together the format the day before. So they put where every live shot is coming from, where every graphic is coming from. They're responsible for talking to the producers, making sure every location is right, every word is spelled correctly, which, you know, sometimes they're mistakes, but that happens. If there's a piece of tape that's going to be rolled into a live spot, like when Vera was sitting there talking live, you saw Evan skating, so that all those things are organized so they're all on a sheet of paper and ready to go. Now, of course, if we're on the air and breaking news happens, you just rip that rundown and you throw it out, because whatever the breaking news story is, that's what we do. And we have people in a control room who sit there and say, okay, you know, the president is going to speak, go here, or okay, there was just a plane crash there and there 100 people might have been injured or whatever it is. And so if that happens, you're off the rundown. But the PAs, that's what they do is we have the show planned for 4 hours every day, and that's what their responsibilities are. And then from there, you become a researcher. And it used to be that the researchers were responsible for booking the guests, and then the producers would put the spots together. But now the researchers actually write some of the spots, some of the shorter ones, some of the easier ones. And then after you're a researcher, at least at the Today Show, you become an associate producer, and then a producer, and then a supervising producer or senior producer in some capacity. So it's not impossible. It is challenging, but and also you might not start at NBC. These days you might start at MSNBC or CNBC or maybe MSNBConline.com, TodayShow.com, things like that. So those are good entry points too. What else? Yes.
I kind of have like a two-part question.
Yeah.
What was it like working with Jeff Zucker when he was?
I just saw him today. Yes.
And do you think the Today Show will kind of be affected by the executive reshuffling that's been going on at NBC?
Well, Jeff Zucker is the one who hired me. I am so fortunate that I had the opportunity to work with him. He was the executive producer, I believe, when he was 26. And he and Katie Couric sort of came up together. And I have never seen somebody so passionate about what they do. I'm sure that I don't have interaction with him on a day-to-day basis anymore, but when I worked for him for probably 5 years, and he just lived and breathed that show. And he cared about everybody. He was a tremendous boss. He would, if you worked hard for him, which pretty much everybody did. The Today Show, it was only 2 hours back then, so it was a smaller, more intimate group, and everybody worked really hard, and everybody he had there loved what they did. And he expected that of you and demanded that of you, but he also took care of you. If you needed something, he was absolutely there for you 100%. And he has since risen and gone on to much greater things, but he still, as I said, I saw him this morning. I was in the studio this morning, and he was walking around, and I'm sad that he's leaving, but I understand what's going on, because NBC, for those of you who don't know, we are owned by General Electric right now, but Comcast is taking over in the very near future. The deal is in the approval stage, and it is expected to close by the end of the year. In terms of how it's going to affect the Today Show, what we've been told is that it won't affect us at all, because Comcast does not have a news division, and the Today Show is one of the most successful parts of NBC. So it's not like there's another Today Show that Comcast has that they're going to have to put together with us. So I know we're going to have benefits that seem to be a little bit better than last year's benefits. But besides that, I don't think that it will affect the Today Show too much at all. And if anything, what I've heard is that they really want to invest more in the news division, which is good, because they don't have a news division, and they do have sports, so sports might be a little bit different, but that's what they tell me. Yes?
How would you recommend going from magazine journalism or newspaper journalism to television, or is that possible?
Oh, well, anything's possible. I do a lot of writing. The way, if I'm assigned a spot, not in my role as supervisor for the Olympics, but if I'm assigned a spot that is just a regular old spot and it's a live spot with somebody coming on the air, like let's say I was assigned a spot to say the topic of the day is what is life like at Princeton. So I would say, okay, what is life like at Princeton? I'm going to go find a student there. So I would say I would call you. I would get your phone number, and I would call you, and then I would pre-interview you on the phone, and I would say, okay, either she's good or she's not so good, and I'm not going to book her. But say you were good, which I'm sure you would be. So I would talk to you, you'd tell me what life was like today. So then I would write up a note that I would give to whoever the reporter was going to be on the spot, and I would say, okay, she says that she goes to class, I don't know, 4 hours a day, and then she studies 15 hours a day, and one day a week she goes out and has a beer, but or whatever. And so I would write the note, and then I would write questions, and I would write a lead. And then the anchors, of course, go on and sort of put their own take on it, but I would sort of give them the information. So I would think that that's similar to what you would do in any journalistic. I mean, I didn't have journalistic training or background, but for a magazine, I would think you research your topic, you figure out what the options are, and it's the same thing. And then I would think the skills would be very transferable. Now, in terms of getting the job, though, the whole thing that I was saying about being a digital journalist, you would have to learn how to shoot and learn how to edit, but I'm sure that any of you could do that. I can do it. I have done it. You all got into Princeton. I'm sure you could figure out how to go shoot a story. You probably shoot videos yourself all the time. So I think you could do it. Yes.
Would you say that the timeline for your career track is still typical in terms of like a month, or sorry, a year and a half at kind of an entry level, then a promotion, or with the economic crisis, has things kind of been extended?
Yes, I would say that people, it just depends. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. I mean, they have freelance jobs now where they'll hire people for a while, like a year. I'm not exactly sure, but they hire them for a year and then they try to get them a staff job. But if you can't, I'm not totally sure of the rule, but it's something like you can't work for more than about a year for a company without benefits because that's illegal. So the NBC does do that, and I'm sure that other companies do too. They'll have freelance people come in and they'll try to get them a job, but if there's no staff job available, then they need to go and they need to leave. So you can't stay freelancing for a company forever, at least a company the size of NBC. So, I mean, as I said, Jeff Zucker was 26 when he was executive producer. Now that certainly is not typical, but our executive producer now, he went to Harvard, but he's 44, so he's the top guy in the Today Show. He's young. So, I mean, there are producers who are in their 50s and 60s, and I'm 42, so it just depends on what you want to do. For me, I love my job, as I'm sure you can all tell, but I also have a family. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I'm not 100% job all the time now because I have my children as well, which that's how I wanted it to be. So I'm very fortunate that I have a job that I'm able to do that with, and that's another thing that has really worked out for me is after I had my daughter, I worked 3 days a week for a while, and now I work 4 days a week. Now, if I have something that comes up on Friday, I don't work Fridays generally. Unless it's something really important going on in my personal life, I usually just do it. I just go in and I do it, but I leave by 9 a.m., so it's fine. And I found in my job, it's if you do your job and do it well, they're very flexible with you, which I think hopefully a lot of companies are that way. What else? Yes.
So, do you guys ever fight it with Good Morning America?
Oh, yes. Good Morning America in the Today Show, it's like Princeton and Harvard. Yeah. Yes. Good Morning America is our chief rival. We always want to be first, as I'm sure they do, but we usually are. And we have been the #1 rated morning show for, I believe it's about 15 years, because it was right around, it really has nothing to do with me, but it was right around when I started that the Today Show, that the Today Show became the #1 show. So yes, GMA is our chief rival. We always want to be first. We try to get the newsmakers first, and we usually do pretty well at it. And that's an area that we've really beefed up in recent years. When I started there, when you were the producer or the researcher, you would do the booking of the guests, and now there's an entire booking department. When there's a big story, they go. So, if there was some news happening in your town, you would have a Today Show producer knocking on your door. It wouldn't just be phone calls anymore. Now, of course, the executive producer has to make the decision about, is it a big enough story? Are we going to put our resources and our money into that? But, yeah, we're definitely rivals with GMA. Yes?
Okay. I understand you majored in history.
Yes.
And it's not exactly the most applicable title you can get from here to go to broadcasting.
Right.
But how much of it did you learn along the way? And how fast did you have to learn? Was it your savvy? Was it your style? Was it your connection? What got you so quickly to where you are now?
Well, I think that there are certain jobs that it matters what you are, what you study in school. Like if you're going to be a doctor, you need to know science, you need to know physics. If you're going to be an engineer, you need to know math. But I think sort of the basis of a liberal arts education is that it teaches you to do anything.
Right.
So I think what I learned here was how to organize my time, sort of a general knowledge of history and all the other courses that I took here. But I think it was, I didn't know anything about TV when I started. I just thought it would be fun because of the travel, because of the working on events, because I like meeting different people and I like doing different things every day. And as I said, I didn't want to sit behind a desk. So I did not have any particular skills that had to do with TV or even journalism. I did not work for the prints. I didn't I just sort of figured it out as I went. I mean, certainly those things wouldn't hurt you if you had them, but I didn't. So.
Did you have any affiliation with any of the professors here that are constantly in the media or anything at all?
Nope.
It was totally unexpected.
I just liked working on events, and so working on TV was working on events, and then it was more because it was events. I had worked for in the summers. I grew up in Cleveland, and the sports marketing company, International Management Group, is based in Cleveland. So I had worked there at the summers during college, and I had worked on golf tournaments. So and I would travel around the country and help them organize the golf tournaments. And I remember one of my assignments was to make sure that the porta potties were there and got cleaned every day. So, but you know, I liked working on events. I didn't have any journalism background, so I just figured it out as I went. And I don't. I would say, you know, my other people. There's some people like me. There are a lot of people who went to Harvard in my office. As I said, my boss went there. One of my good friends who sits down the road from me went there. So there are a lot of people like me who just sort of fell into it and do it because we love it. Yes.
Well, we have to start Princeton inroads.
I know. We need some more Princeton people.
Something I've noticed, like a trend of entertainment and just news in general, there seems to be a lot more specialization. And you know, if you want a specific opinion or a certain viewpoint, you can easily find it today. Whereas people used to have a lot more collective experiences, watching the same newscast, watching the same broadcasts, the same pieces of entertainment. Do you think that trend is going to continue towards more and more specialization? I mean, the Today Show is unique in that you guys have such a wide audience, and your demographic is across ages, across genders, across a lot of different, you know, crosscuts. So, do you think we're going to continue towards specializing, or?
I don't know overall, but I would say that NBC News certainly will not. I mean, we really try to be fair. We try to present both sides of everything, particularly in politics. You know, some people might say we don't, but I think we do. And I see that the efforts that we put in all the time to make sure that we're fair. And I mean, certainly we have on guests who lean one way or the other, but one of the things that we have to do is we have to make sure that we identify who they are, where they're from, what group they're affiliated with, so that when you're listening to them, you know where they're coming from. So at NBC News, and I would think other, well, I don't really know, but all I can say is that at NBC News, we always are going to try to be fair and try to be in the middle and present both sides equally.
And just as an adjunct to that, I was wondering more the entertainment side of things. There seems to be an increasing presence of reality TV, and people do want to learn more about some of these new celebrities, and so you often see
Jersey Shore.
or whatever
Snooki.
it is.
The situation.
Or whomever.
Yeah.
But making them a larger presence, and one of the things you always see people brought on to the Today Show, or being introduced to a new audience that might not see these new people like in prime time.
Yep.
Do you think we're going to see an increasing trend towards that, or people that want more hard news early in the morning?
Well, I mean, I think that people, that when there's a show like the Jersey Shore that grabs people for whatever reason, we do put those people on our show because so many people are interested in them. You're generally not going to find them on our show before 8 a.m. Our first hour tries to be very hard news, the news of the day, and then as the show goes on, it gets lighter. By the time you get to the fourth hour, it's a very different program than what you see from 7 to 8, and not that anything is wrong with that. Different people want different things, but our show, news is first and foremost. And as I was talking about when I was talking about the rundown, if something happens that is newsworthy that we need to talk about, we stop what we're doing and we do it. And no matter what we're doing, I mean, I've been standing there with guests who have spent days preparing whatever they were going to do, and we're the next segment up, and something happens, and we go to that news. So, you know, if I had booked you to come on and you were a Princeton chef and you had just, I don't know, won some great culinary prize, and you and I had been talking for weeks, and you had come and you had prepared 6 different kinds of chocolate cake, and you were going to present them on the Today Show, and you were standing there and we were ready to go in the commercial break, and a plane crashed, that would be it. We would say, we're so sorry. We'll, you know, of course, we'll pay for your expenses that you spent on your cake, but we'll have to reschedule this and do it another day. So that's, for us, for NBC News, it's always news first and foremost.
How, you're talking about you have to look at people and say, I'm sorry, we can't help you out. And just in general, sort of the stereotype, I guess, of working in media or television is that it can be very cutthroat and there can be a lot of personalities clashing. And maybe this is just watching 30 Rock, all actors are there. But I'm just sort of curious what the relationship is with a bunch of producers. Are you competing for segments? How does it work where there's a whole bunch of you and you're all sort of trying to get your stuff in to make a name for yourself? I don't know if that's maybe
no, I understand what you're saying. Well, the way that our office is set up now is literally like this room. So I would sit there, you would sit there, you would sit there. There would maybe be a little bit more space, maybe like this much more on either side, but we're all sort of in a big fishbowl or newsroom. And I would say, I wouldn't say that the competition is that bad. I mean, there are people who, as there are in any office, there are people who get along better. You have your friends, you have your frenemies, and you have the people you're always kind of keeping your eye on. But it's certainly, I would not characterize it at all as cutthroat. I have actually, the people who I work with, we generally really look out for each other. I mean, of course, there are always situations. I'm sure that, I'm very fortunate in that I've gone to the last 8 Olympics, and there are people who haven't, so I'm sure that, some people might not like that. But there's a lot, particularly in our show with 4 hours of TV, there's so many cool projects that we do. We do Where in the World is Matt Lauer? And we haven't done it in the last 2 years because of the economy, but we're hoping to do it again soon because we want to do the 10th anniversary trip. But when you do that, you go to Egypt, you go to an aircraft carrier, you go all these incredible places all over the world, and our executive producers really do try to make sure that other people, that they mix it up. It's not always the same people doing the same things. We've done Ends of the Earth, we've done all kinds of special trips all over the place. So people really do, if you were just hired, you're probably not going to get to go to the Olympics, but they really do try to keep it, to mix it up somewhat. So I would not characterize it as any more cutthroat than any other job. Yes?
There's definitely a field that once you kind of start to get going on a trajectory in the field, you kind of just want to keep going and keep that momentum going. And just looking at that from the point of view of being a woman and wanting to eventually maybe not be at your job 100%, feeling maybe a little bit of a time crunch to kind of do what you can at 100% before you can't. Looking at that and then looking at maybe doing something like grad school, which you wouldn't be able to do once you get into this trajectory program. What are your thoughts about?
Well, I can only tell you from my own experience. I did not go to grad school. I was a runner doing the $50 a day in the hotel room with 8 other people and all that. I think different people would answer you differently. I thought for me, it worked out for me. I did not go to grad school. I have a job that I love. I have been at NBC for 15 years. I have great flexibility. They have been more than gracious with me when I've had my children and other situations that I've dealt with, giving me time to deal with those situations. I think that probably more so than the company, it's the people that you work with. Is it worth your time and your money to go to grad school in journalism? I think it depends on you. Some people would say absolutely yes, and maybe those people have different skills than I do. But for me, I didn't do it, and I've never regretted it. I've never thought that it was necessary. And I'm not sure, actually, that most of the producers I know, I can't really think of anybody that went to journalism grad school.
Well, not just journalism, but any sort of anything you might want to do before you get into that trajectory. Do people tend to just go straight out of college, or do many of them do other things in between, or
you mean
to try and get that starting position? Do people generally do that straight out of, especially young women? Do they go straight out of college frequently, or do they do other things?
I think it depends. I don't think that anybody would hold it against you if you were 25 and had been traveling, or you wanted to go do Teach for America, or whatever it is you wanted to do. I don't think anybody, no. I think that you should, I think that when you are graduating and when you have the time and you don't have a family, that you should do what you want to do then, because if you don't do it then, it gets more difficult. My friend Mitch, who's my classmate, he's got 6 children back there. He's a class of 90. He'll tell you, when you have 6 children, it gets more difficult. So no, but if there's something that you want to do before you launch on your career path, nobody is going to hold it against you at least in my world, that they're going to think of it as a, if it was something valuable, they're going to think of it as a life experience that is only going to help you. Is that what you mean?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So you've described what it's like working for NBC as a company, so 2 parts.
Yep.
Do you think your experience would be the same working for any other company or any other news program? And also, I'm not sure, you'll have to correct me, but I've heard, read, seen that the Olympics loses money typically for NBC, but they still air it because it brings other psychic income and other valuable things to the network. What would you do if they ever moved the Olympics, or if they decided they didn't want to cover it anymore, they wanted ABC or CBS to do it?
Okay, 2 questions. So the first one, working for other companies, the only other place that I've ever worked is ABC Sports. And when I worked there, I was pretty much right out of college. It's hard for me to say. I mean, I was in a different position. I certainly learned a lot there. I don't think, at the time, I thought I could never possibly work harder than I did there. Although it was fun, it was grueling. So that's really my only point of comparison, because I've only worked for those 2. At NBC, I think the reason, NBC has very good benefits and is a good company to work for, and GE has been fine and all that, but I think it's more your particular boss. And I am very fortunate. My direct supervisor is a woman who has also become a very good friend of mine. She could not be nicer. The executive producers I have worked for, including Jeff Zucker, Jim Bell now, there was a whole other cast of characters along the way in the middle there, but most of them have been really terrific. So I think it more depends on your individual boss, because that person sort of sets the tone and that person makes the rules. So I think that I've been very fortunate to work for great bosses for the most part. And in terms of the Olympics, NBC does have the next Olympics, which is in London in 2012. And then after that, the Olympic rights are up for bidding. And I think they keep changing the time when that is going to happen. And I don't know. If it went to another network, I would have to see. Because I do, my job at the Olympics, a lot of people, it's great to talk about, but it's probably a quarter of my job, because I really focus on that, the 6 months leading up to the games, during the games, and then there's kind of a lull. So this is kind of a lull right now, because Vancouver was just earlier this year. We'll start gearing up for London. We'll probably do a year out to London, and then 6 months out to London, and then we'll start doing profiles on people. But I do like working there, but people certainly change jobs and networks, and I started at ABC. I'm very happy where I am, so I don't know. We'll see. What else? Yes.
Would you recommend,
okay.
Would you recommend specializing in something? Obviously you like sports, and that's sort of where you maybe stick stuff to your career. But for example, is it better to sort of get into a wide range of things and start out there, or try to sort of focus on things?
I think at this point, for you, I would try everything. Try different things. I don't think there's any, unless you want to be something very specialized, like a doctor. I don't think there's any reason to. In journalism, no. I think you should, at this point, you should try everything you can and see what you like, and you're going to learn something along the way. And you might, as I said, I went into TV more because I liked working on events and I liked traveling, not so much because it was TV. And now I have one of the most coveted jobs in the TV industry. So I didn't come out of Princeton saying, oh, I have to go work in TV, and oh, I want to go be a journalist. I just wanted to go do something where I could work on events and travel and meet interesting people and do something fun and cool and every day. And the other thing that's great about a job like mine is you never stop learning things. I learn something every single day, and I'm very good at cocktail parties, because especially on the Today Show, we're always doing the latest reality show or whatever. So I always know what everybody's talking about. I always know what's on the cover of People magazine. Can always have a conversation about that. So I have to have a sip of water, but what else? Yes?
What do you do if you have a really terrible boss or really bad coworkers? Do you stick it out, or do you find allies, and what do you do?
What do I do? Well, if I have a terrible coworker, I try to avoid them. If I have a terrible boss,
because I've heard that before also, that the people you work with and around you can make such a difference.
Yes, no, they can. If you have a terrible boss, it depends on how serious it is. If you really can't get along with that person and you feel like that person is ruining your life, I would look for another job. I have had that situation once. Yeah, I mean, if you really can't stand them, it's your life, and why get up and be miserable every day? So I would. But coworkers, I mean, whenever you work in life, you're always going to have people that you get along with better than others, and so it's not that difficult. I mean, if somebody's backstabbing you constantly, but I haven't really had that situation. I think you can just try to stay clear of people you don't get along with. That's what I tell my kids too. Try to be nice and see what happens. Is that what you tell your kids?
Yes. I said just punch.
Yeah.
Why mess around?
It's a different, yeah. Yes.
If Katie Couric's contract doesn't get renewed at CBS News, do you think that she would come back to the Today Show, or is that kind of...
Well, I love Katie Couric. I worked with her for many years. I don't know. I have seen her, but not recently. I know that she very, very much enjoyed working on the Today Show, but she did it for a long time, and she wanted to try something different, and that's why she left. So I don't really know. You'd have to ask her. But you know, I know there was a lot of speculation about that recently. It is. I have heard in my office that was just purely speculation, that there was no truth behind that rumor. But would she someday? Possibly, but she did already do it for 10 years, and how could you possibly do it better than she did it when she did it? So I'm not really sure what she would have to gain from coming back, unless she just wanted to and wanted to come hang out with me again. So maybe she does. Yes?
You're on the Olympics, and then there's Morning World with Matt Lauer, and today there's a wedding. Is everyone kind of on like a project? Are you working with the same team every day, or is it kind of like you work with everyone in the office?
Well, the teams shift around. The last Olympics, Vancouver, I was the, well, I'm a supervising producer for the Olympics, but everybody below me, the producers, the APs, the researchers, nobody who was in Beijing came to Vancouver. So they switched up the entire team. And that's what somebody was asking a question about, the different projects. I mean, my boss now is particularly good at that. So everybody, it was a totally different team that I was working with. And at first I was kind of like, oh, I really wanted my people, because when you have your people and you're comfortable with them, you like to work with them. But it turned out fine, and I met different people, and they all did a really good job. So you do tend to work, not with everybody, but there's some projects are very individual. There's some things that I do, if I'm just writing a live spot for the next day, that I just do by myself. But if you're working on a longer term project, like the wedding, I have never worked on the wedding. So I know we've done it for many, many years. I've never done it. I've never done the ends of the earth. I have done Where the World is Matt. I have done, obviously, the Olympics, and I've done, one of my favorite shows was last year when the climb to the top of the crown of the Statue of Liberty was closed after 9/11 for security reasons. And last year, my boss somehow convinced the Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar, that he had decided he was going to reopen it, but it was a big secret. And she somehow convinced him that they were going to announce this on the Today Show, which is not usually the way that the government works. Normally they don't like go to one show and say, okay, we're going to give you the exclusive announcement. So I was very fortunate in that I got to work on that show. So I knew this was happening, and I got to climb to the top of the crown with Matt and Meredith and Ann and Al doing a tape spot about it, and then we announced it live. So somehow or another we actually took the windows out of the Statue of Liberty crown, which the Department of the Interior was not very pleased about, but we actually got all their heads leaning out the windows, so they were waving out the crown, and we had a helicopter up, and it was a beautiful day, and so we went on the air live, and I will tell you, the people at GMA were not happy that morning. And then Ken Salazar was there and said, and guess what, we're reopening the crown to all of you on July 4th. So, you know, things like that was cool too. Yes?
You seem to do a lot of feature stories.
I do, yes.
Do you ever cover breaking news?
Yes, but yes, everybody on our show has to be able to do everything. And I do cover breaking news. We are all assigned a shift, it's called Night Writer, and you go in at noon and you stay until you're done. It used to be like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning every day, and you would do whatever the breaking news story of the day was, and sometimes you do 2 or 3. And we do it about every 5 or 6 months. There are people who do nothing but breaking news. If another producer was sitting here, they would tell you that they do a story every day for the next day and they do all live. That doesn't happen to be what I enjoy as much, but there are other people who love it, and that's what they do. I do tend to be more the special event feature kind of person.
I mean, what's the environment like? Like I've heard it's very competitive.
It's very competitive amongst all the different. Oh yes, oh yes, yes. I mean, the rules that we follow, we do not pay for interviews ever, and so you have to sort of convince the newsmaker of the day why they should come on your show. So a lot of times people know Matt and Meredith are very good about getting themselves involved in the big news stories, about making calls themselves, about reaching out to people when there are big interviews to be had. So you really just have to convince them by your charming shelf that they want to talk to you and to do the Today Show. And for us, it's not as hard as some of the other shows because we are the #1 rated show. So a lot of times if people want to get the word out about something, they do want to come to us because they know that more people are going to see them and their story on the Today Show. So it's harder for the other guys. But it's, you know, we take it very seriously. And we always try to be first. Yes?
I wanted to know, like, Katie and Meredith, do they write their own stories, or is that particularly for writers, for producers to do, and they simply go and...
No, they are, what we do is we prepare them. So if we're going, well, it's different if we're doing live or tape. If they're doing a live interview, we write a background note for them, we write suggested questions, and we write a lead. But then they go in, they read the note, and then they go in and sort of rework the questions so that it's their style.
Wow.
And they'll call you. I mean, they've called me at home. If they have questions about things, if it's a live spot, they don't usually get it till the night before. So at 7 o'clock at night, I'll get a call, hey Jenny, it's Matt. I had a question about this. And then you have to, I might not know right away. My kids might be screaming. It doesn't happen all the time. But, I'll say, oh, here's the answer. Or, oh, you know what, let me call you back in 10 minutes. Or let me go find an article about that. And so they're very involved in what they do. In terms of the tape spots, it's the same kind of thing. You write the background note, you write suggested questions, they make them their own, and then after the interview is done, like that Lindsey Vonn interview was probably 20 minutes, half an hour that was cut down, I do the first pass of the script, and then I give it to Matt, that one. He'll change it around a little bit. Sometimes he'll say fine, but usually, I mean, he's very involved, and he's great at what he does. He'll always make it better. and then I'll edit it with an editor. I should be doing it myself, but I usually still use an editor. And put it together, and then he'll come screen it before it airs. And if he has any comments or doesn't like something about it, he'll tell you. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. This was fun. Thank you all for coming.
I'd also like to mention Jenny's parents are here. Her father's class
of 58.
Class of 58. So welcome to you too tonight.
And my friend Joan Reed, she is the mother of one of the Olympic athletes that I've done stories on. Her son, Jason Reed, won a gold medal in the men's 8 rowing in Athens. And he's trying for London.
That's a great story.
Yeah, he didn't win the medal, thanks to me. So, well, thank you all for coming. Enjoy your weekend. Oh, I'm losing my voice. That's a lot of... Ha ha. Yes.